Martin. I wanted to show you another part of the training that people get, especially as it relates to how you express a risk. There was a headline today about the front month in natural gas, trading over a certain level for the first time in XYZ amount of time. And again, price, closing price, settlement, to me, it's irrelevant in and of itself because it's just a data point. And what we need is, if you want to learn how to trade really, really well, is to immediately see that data point and have context. And then it got me thinking, because I've traded a lot of natural gas. When I was in New York, a lot of my friends either became cops or they went to the floor and they traded. A few of them became firemen too. And in a lot of ways, it's all hard labor, because if you're on the floor and that's how you made your living, there's really no floor anymore. You have to show up to work. So you could make a lot of money, but it was still kind of blue collar despair in that there was a lot of work to be done and you had to go there and be there in person. So that to me is a job in a lot of ways. It's very different from being a business owner and having someone else run it. So one of the things about physical commodities is that there are seasonality, okay, to all of them. And in natural gas, you're looking at creating electricity, and that electricity is either for running air conditioning or heating. And so it's very interesting when you look at the temperature as being an input to what affects natural gas prices. So you can bet directionally long or short, and you can use options on futures to, again, express the risk with ceilings and floors, i.e. the strike prices, and then net out debits and credits to make that happen. We have a whole complement of how to do commodity outrights, commodity spreads using futures contracts, and then option spreads, right? And today I want to show you the March-April spread in natural gas, which is a seasonal spread that typically deals with the end of winter and the beginning of spring. And so it's right at the cusp of a transition, not unlike where the refiners are when they get the crude oil and they recalibrate their refining from making gasoline to meet the demand of summer driving towards the end of the summer, where they actually stop making gasoline, RBOB, and they start making heating oil in advance of the winter seasons, especially in the northern part of the country. We don't really have winter here. We have, obviously there's winter months, but in LA it's 70 degrees. It's summer here all the time, basically, even if it's winter, compared to New York, for example, or Chicago. Now, with the spread, you are simultaneously long and short. And the way you can read this here is that you are plus, just like algebra, you're plus the March as represented by the month H of 2017. And by the minus sign, you're inherently short the April, which is J. So you have March minus J, and the settlement is 27 cents to the March, right? Because it's a positive number, so that implies March has a higher price than April. Okay? Now, that's interesting because that's inverted, right? If the front month is higher priced than the back months, that market is trading at a premium. A normal market is a carry charge market where the deferred months are higher, in which case the market is saying, we have enough of what we need right now, so we will actually pay you more if you store it. Whereas when there are shortages, right, at least as the market says there's a shortage, you have near-term prices higher than deferred months. And the market is therefore saying there's tightness in supply, and we will pay you more for delivering sooner than later. And the back months being at a discount is a penalty of sorts. Now, these spreads are living, breathing mechanisms, and they respond to information. And the seasonality is not just Mother Nature, it is billions of dollars of both state and private money that's invested into the energy complex. All right, we're not even talking crude with all the different products that you can get out of, refining crude. Whatever, there's 17 of them, gasoline and heating oil being one. But you have everything from napalm to naphtha to, there's a whole slew of stuff that comes from crude oil, some of which is, used for energy. In natural gas, again, we have a lot of it, but we still have these seasonal tendencies that show up. There are relationships within the months, regardless of where the price goes. So, for example, right now the front month of natural gas is around $3. And that means there's a relationship between the front month and all the other months, right? It also affects the relationship between January and March of 2017. Even if the price was $5 and the market structure was the same, there's still a relationship between March, April. And because of the seasonality, that relationship is very reliable because of long decades and centuries of consumption and production that are built into people's homes, literally, and big corporations. So let's take a look at what this has done seasonally over the last 15 years. You can now see this chart is superimposed right here. And what you see is the 15-year seasonality of the spread of March, April. Okay, and you can see that it trades at a premium. The numbers here are relative, right? They're just to show you magnitude. It's more than saying necessarily, so you don't have to read into this and say, oh, it's 30 cents. You can if you want to. I would just look at it as a sense of magnitude and what can happen. So you have historically over 15-year average, March trades as much as 30 cents premium to the April in the prior year, right? Because this is 16, and it trades 0 would be parity. So they converge. And there's a few ways that can happen. There's many ways that March can go lower, again, because you're playing the difference. You're not necessarily betting on the direction of March or April. You're betting on the relative value between the two contracts, i.e. the mathematical difference, and where's that going to go? Okay? And so you want that difference to converge at 0 come Valentine's Day. And that's a very reliable pattern. And interestingly enough, what I like about commodity spreads, intra-commodity spreads, is that you're long and short the same contract, which obviously has enormous correlation. So you're hedged. So being that you're hedged, you're afforded lower risk. And if you have lower risk and lower vol, because where you make on one, you lose on the other, the exchange is willing to afford you lower margin. And so whereas you might see $2,000 for an outright long or short position, you may see something as little as $500 to $700 total margin if you are long or short a spread. Now, I don't necessarily want to imply that margin is risk. Margin is the minimum amount that you need to be in a certain trade. It's a performance bond on the entire value. But it does free up capital so that you can affect other transactions. 2, you're also hedged a very volatile market where 1 penny equals $100. So you can see if this was the average and you went from 30, I don't know who would put on the trade for 14 months, but it did move $3,000. The spread moved $3,000. In fact, from October, it went almost, this looks like $1,900 to par, which is a lot for natural gas. And it's a nice way to do that if options are not your ball of wax, if outright directional trades are not your ball of wax. Oftentimes you can put on a directional trade and you can be right, but you might be early. Or there might be news that hits the tape randomly after you're in the position that gets you knocked out, so you have to start over again, right? And if you have a thesis and you see the setup, you have to put the trade on if you have discipline. And if you want to exhibit having discipline. So here we are in the middle of the summer, we're coming into July 4th weekend, we're still trading at $3,000 premium to the March. And that whole premium dissipates over the course of the second half of the year. You just have to sit through it. Now, this rally against you is effectively 5 cents. So that would be $500 a spread. You'd have to see what you can stomach and what percent of that, what does that mean in your overall equity? Okay? Now, the way you construct the spread is not by legging in. Legging in means putting on either the long or the short first and then putting on the other one. You only get spread or margin is if you effect the transaction at the same time. Now, you can enter at market, like i.e. buy the March and sell the April at the same time at the market. There might be 2 or 3 tenths of a cent slippage, but when you're looking at making 20 cents, that to me is immaterial. If you're really, really trading size, and by size I'm saying 50 contracts or more, then you might want to enter the market as a limit and say, I want to put on this spread at, 28 or better. But then the bid of one and the ask of the other have to work out for you, because that's the limit, right? It's the if you're buying the offer of March and you're selling the bid of April. Unless, of course, you're a market maker yourself, and that's a different ball of wax too. So you have to look at that limit price as being the ask or the offer here with the bid here, and then set that accordingly, which is, say it's 27 cents, right? You can put that in as a limit to get into the spread. If it's not there, or if it's not there in size, you might not ever get filled. It really depends on who you're working with and who your clearing member is. There are some firms that are more spreader friendly than others. It makes sense because if you're doing a basic intra or intercommodity spread, you're looking at 2 transactions to put the spread on, which typically means more commission dollars for the clearing member or the IB. And I'm not judging anybody by how they make their money. I'm just saying that they're in the business of effecting transactions. That's how they make their money, is in the commission. So anyway, this might be something for you to add to your arsenal. I also think, not to plug the system, this is also part of the education, in that we're big on trying to show you what is the best way for you to express the risk in your portfolio so that you can be emotionally and financially okay. If you just want to be an outright futures trader, that's probably good for you. And that works, certainly you can do it. But the world of opportunity opens up quite a bit when you can calibrate your risks with your emotional constitution. You can calculate the P&L easy on any spreadsheet. The question is, can you do it and sleep at night and know that you've got the trends working in your favor and you've got superior risk management working for you at any given time? Because there are times when, if the volatility kicks in, for example, on natural gas, it makes trading directionally, long or short, a little bit more difficult, because the daily vol on the contract can be, several hundred to over $1,000. And for smaller traders, that's a pain. But if you can take advantage of the seasonal trends that are built into the market by doing spreads, you get the same net effect. You have a little bit of a longer holder period, but you're also hedged, which is great. So you won't have to worry about waking up and taking it in the teeth, because if one contract's up 9 cents, the other one's likely up 8.5. So you're really looking at time. There's no time decay or extrinsic value like there are in options, but there is a similar vibe to that, just based on supply and demand, where the contracts will trade at parity. All right, I hope that helps you understand spreads.